There is like point. So you get your data and then you start the question. Okay. So they said like they enroll like 200 students from the beginning. And at the end, six students are the only ones who the first standard 4, like 7. What is happening? You see how you question data, but you get this from open source. You see, then you get from report. That's why like we have this always reports they are publishing data like South is what. So you may find like they have interview people what they think and they get this research and they publish it. So the good part is when a good data journalist, when it came to that data and question, then she or he get the story thing. So that is like, no, for now you cannot publish any data because you need the permission and all that. But that's comes because a good data analyst or a good data journalist question the data until she gets what she wants. So that is a good part of data. But you can get the data, like I said, from open data source, like the government, as I said, the organizations and the official reports. Like you get like someone said that the official report, like this is the report where this and this happened and all that, this number. And then you can question now, why this is happening? Okay, the reason behind like you say like they don't have enough teachers, they don't have enough they do like other manual without doing what they come to learn. So that is what I'm trying to say. Like you can get data and question it from open source.
Okay. I think that's a very interesting point because there are some stories or statistics that they're enough on their own. You know, you don't even need to see, oh, how was it before, how was it now? Yeah. Like recently, I think in the western region of Tanzania, there has been a story of over 2,000 child marriages, you know, in just one region, and it's like, and then that leads to you wanting to then do more research, like what is happening there? You know, what is the sex education like in the school? Is there sex education in the school? And yeah, I think that's a very interesting approach to data journalism. And if we can bring in our speaker in Uganda, can you hear us over there?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Can you give us maybe some examples of materials that could be used as a data journalistic approach that you guys mainly use in Uganda?
Come again, I have not heard the question very clearly.
Okay. Can you give us some examples of materials that could be used as a data in a data journalism story? Maybe some specific examples from Uganda.
Yes, thank you. For me, I find ourselves working in a very, very difficult terrain, especially in terms of accessing data. The institutions in Uganda that could be having data or that have data like the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, that's the chief government agency in charge of producing data. You find them, their data is not updated, they are hiding their data. Other government institutions, they don't want to give you data. Even when they have it, others don't know how to correct it. They don't know how relevant that data is. For instance, we had this attitude from the Electoral Commission when we had the presidential election in January. So after completing the election data, they said, no, we cannot give you an Excel sheet of the data. They had this attitude of saying that, what if you go and start changing numbers from the Excel sheet that we have given you? But I told them, still you have your Excel sheet and you can challenge man, say, this is our authentic data, and you have changed that. So what they did was to put out PDF documents. The results were on PDF. And PDF is the hardest type of a document to turn into a readable data, converting it from Excel. So those are the challenges that we have to first appreciate, that people don't want to give us data in accessible form. But with those results, is that what we did is that we were a small group, and one of us knew how to use a tool called Power BI. And he used it in 6 hours to convert more than 3,000 pages of election data from PDF to Excel. So when you talk about the data sources, you have to be aware of the challenges. People with data, they don't want to give it to you. Even when they give it to you, they want to give it to you in the most accessible form. So apart from that, you have also to look at the other opportunities that we have. There is a lot of data online that we can use to tell extremely good stories. If you know how to program, if you know how to scrape Twitter, imagine the amount of data that you can scrape from Twitter on Kenyan election. People are always talking about Kenyan election now. It's the big topic on Twitter. Come to Uganda. There are always lots of things trending online. So a person with skills scrape Twitter, you can collect a large amount of data. Imagine in 1 hour or in a day or in 2 days, creating a database of 1 million tweets, 500,000 tweets, and imagine what you can do with that data. Second is YouTube is becoming a very popular channel, and people are using it for propaganda, people are using it for marketing, and talking all sorts of things. A person with skills to scrape YouTube, you tell a story, you scrape YouTube and tell a story that no any other person can tell. So those are the opportunities. But the challenges at the best level where we are now is we need to find data that is already available, data that we can put in Excel sheets and analyze and turn that into a story, or that data that gives you a story pointers and say, the story could be here because this is what the data tells me.
Thank you. Thank you, Blanche. I think that it's a shared problem in East Africa, trying to get data from sources that may not be willing to give it to you. I think last year we had a problem during the pandemic when people wanted to share statistics, but then there was just an order from above that you can only publish what the Ministry of Health publishes. So even all media houses just stopped seeking data on statistics, and we kind of waited, and everyone was doing secondhand jobs. But in the interest of time, I think we'll start taking questions. If there's a question from Uganda to either Zahara or Paris or Blanche, Karibuni. And please also send in your questions online to our virtual audience. If you're listening, we're very keen to hear from you as well. Any questions to our speakers?
Yes, we have a question from Uganda. Thank you so much. I'll speak up from she was asking a question about
Uganda, are there any questions on that side?
some tools that we could use for.
If she can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. is your question directed to?
My question is directed from the speaker here in Uganda.
Sorry, can you speak a bit louder, please?
Yes, I'm saying my question is from the speaker from Uganda this side. And my question is, can you give us some of those amazing tools that we can use to collect data for telling our stories? Thank you.
Yes, are there any other questions? I think we can have 3 from the audience there, and then 1 from our virtual audience.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, my question will go to our partners in Uganda, and I want to ask you to give us some incredible sources where we can get data in Uganda. Thank you.
How big is the challenge of data integrity?
Okay.
How big is the challenge of the integrity?
Okay. There's a question from the audience tuning in, and I think this will go to you, Zara. How big is the audience in
integrity?
In integrity.
How big is the challenge?
How big is the challenge
of data integrity?
Of data integrity. No, sorry, I meant Paris. I'm sorry, I meant this. If you could answer that one for us, Paris. But I think we'll start with Nanshe Musimbuzi from Uganda.
Okay, thank you. I will start by answering the last question on where are the incredible sources of data. Frankly, to tell you, they don't exist in our terrain, the terrain that we are in Africa and East Africa. You see, if you go to a country like America, you find millions and millions of data sets where you can start. And about many subjects from where you can start and get story pointers. If, for instance, here, the Ministry of Health cannot give you the data on COVID, where else can you get it? The data from COVID, you can get it from the dashboard of Johns Hopkins University. They have the biggest data set on COVID across the world. There is in our world in data. It's a hub at Oxford University. They also have good data. But as I said, the challenge with our institutions here, those who are in charge of giving us data, either they don't have it or they don't want to give it us. Because, for instance, I tried with the Ministry of Health to ask them, can you give us the Excel sheet for the data that you have? They refused. And I was triggered by a story that had been published by the Daily Monitor, which said that the district called Otuke had not had a single case of COVID. I think it was around April this year. So I said, what's this? How can this happen? So how do you get that story without knowing how many people had been tested on Otuke district? So when I went to the Ministry of Health, they at first were promising that they give the data, then they started taking that around. The person in charge of data needs socialization from one office needs socialization from another office until you reach the peak. I say, okay, I gave up with them. So, and imagine COVID data, there is nothing there is nothing high about COVID data, but people don't want to put it out there. There's this thing that the Ministry of Health posts on its Twitter is not that, because you want data that you can interpret and turn into a story. If the Ministry of Health tells you that we tweet every day our test results, so go on our Twitter and get that. Imagine for you starting from last year up to now, that can you turn that data into a story? The answer is no. So why can't they give you an Excel sheet, which I hope they have, and you use that Excel sheet because you can interpret it quickly and try to get story point. So if a person tells you I have put out such kind of data on my social media account, tell them that's not the data, that's not the data. So frankly, once again, we don't have good data sources. So that means access data, we must be having the skills that, for instance, you can go and scrape the Ministry of Health Twitter handle and turn that information that is there into an Excel sheet. That itself is a big pain. The second question was about the tools that we can use to do our study. First, you need to start with the best tools. Excel, Google Sheets. Those are very, very incredible tools. You can put data in Excel, interpret it, turn it into a graph or a visualization. If you can do that as a startup, that's really very, very excellent. After that, there are so many online tools that for mainly data visualization, not data analysis, unfortunately. So once you start understanding those tools, and they are in hundreds, if not thousands, and they are free of charge. After that, perhaps you could hire programming because they are solutions or challenges that we have with that. The programming languages gives you the freedom that Excel cannot give you. And they also do, they are better data visualization. So if you are starting, it should be a step-by-step process, and understanding how to use Excel. From Excel, start trying to use online tools that you can use for data visualization. After that, start trying out programming languages. Actually, they are not hard, they are very easy.
Thank you so much.
I think that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. If we could have let's answer the last question.
Thank you, Helen. I think the question is on the challenge of data integrity. I think the thing with the data integrity challenges, you'll always run into them. And I think part of the problem why this happens is when you have design flaws, say, in the system. If there's a design flaw with the way a certain database is created, you're definitely going to encounter challenges. And with data
I think we lost Paris for a second. Are you still there, Paris? Okay. Maybe you can help us to answer that question, Zara. Oh,
Paris, can you unmute yourself?
sorry?
Can she unmute herself?
Oh, she's muted. Paris, you're muted. Hello, Paris, can you hear us? I think you're muted. If you could unmute your mic, you were halfway through to answering the question, and then we lost you for a bit. There's a bit of a network issue today. So if I can just have the question repeated from the audience, from the virtual audience. So that Zara can answer it, the question from the virtual audience. No, the same one.
How big is the challenge of data integrity?
How big is the challenge of data integrity?
Okay. I don't know if I get the question right, but I'll try to answer. So the big challenge for data integrity is that all right. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. Challenge for data integrity is that if you are trying to find data, you should be aware of the right places where you can get data. And I've noticed you should know like who published the data and what does the data say, and when does it was published, and where the a person get his or information or data, and why did someone publish it at the first place, like what does he want to tell us, and how did he or she got his or her data. So these are the important questions to ask yourself when you get any data. Like you should be very curious to know like who published the data and what does it mean? Like, yeah, what was the method of getting the data, and when was it published, and where was the data was where was someone take his or her data.
So that's what you can look out for.
Yeah.
Like the who and the what, why, when.
Yeah.
But is that an issue? Is that very prevalent that there are many places that have incorrect data? Is it a challenge to find the right data?
Yes, it is challenge because at some point you may find data which are not authentic. Yeah, so you should be very curious. And one thing is good for someone who wants to publish or data or to use data. You should take the updated one, the latest one. So if you got that data from 2015, well, you have to get data for 2021, use the data of 2021. Because when you try to write a story, you can use the data which was 2015, but you may find what was addressed on that data has already been solved. So you can read to confusion. So we advise people to use the latest data when you present it. But I want to add on something. Code for Africa, we have this academy.africa. It's a data literacy platform. When you enroll it, you can learn about data journalism, tools to use, everything which we try to communicate with the other speakers. You can get it through academy.africa. So when you have time, like want to learn something about data journalism, and you get the full course, and at the end you get the certificate. So we have a lot of courses in academy.africa. And also another tool is open open, maybe Open Africa. Yeah, Open Africa, also you can request the data you want. So you can register yourself there and say like, I'm from Uganda, I want this data, please call for Africa. Okay, please Open Africa, help me to get one. So you can get that. That is my true takeaway from you guys. Yes, back to you, Hannah.
Okay, thank you guys. This has been the session on data journalism and how we can use data to create new ways of storytelling. I do hope that you were taking notes. We've had some professional speakers on the panel. We've had Zara Tunda from Tanzania. We've had Paris Gachahi from Kenya. And we've had Blanche Mbuzi from Uganda. Thank you so much for joining. Stay with us. We still have more in store for you on day 3 of the East African Festival.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going on a 10-minute break and then we'll be right back.
Sasa nilikuwa nataka kujua hii session inaenda hivi hivi au kujaribu hapa tuna switch. Sawa. Siwezi kufikiria kwa switch. Kama unataka kujua. Sikilize hapo. Hapa lazima itakuwa kama hapa asikilize na
So safe switch.
asante. Okay, you beautiful people. Hapa. What's my please?
The tools to developing a loyal audience. Before we begin, I would just like to know if I can be heard in Uganda. Can you guys hear us? Okay, I can hear us. Asanteni, what about Uganda?
I go back to you.
Hello, can you hear us? MCI Hub. Okay. Thank you so much. So let's get it started. Guys, if you're struggling with developing proper audiences, this is the session for you. The experts are from different backgrounds and will share with you different ways and tools that you can use to develop and grow a loyal audience. Don't forget to prepare questions and situations you've faced in your work areas for clarifications during the session. Especially to the virtual audience, just write in your questions and we will get to them by the end of the session. But with us today, we have three speakers. There's Leonard Mubali from BBC Africa, Saleh Chiku Luweno, and we have Danze Edwin from Next Media Uganda. But I'm pretty sure you guys would want to introduce yourselves. So if we can start with you, Danze, if you can give us a brief introduction of what you do and where you do it, like your experience in media, and then we'll move on to the team here in TZ before we carry on. Karibu, Danze.
Yeah, we say what's the Mutian.
How do you reply?
Yeah, my name is Danze Edwin. I am digital marketing head at Next Services. I do content production. I curate content. That's what I'm specializing at the moment. I do radio, TV, and a bit of producing of recorded shows, not the live shows. I've been doing digital marketing for about 8 years, and been trained. I've had BBC there. I've been trained by the BBC, been trained by the DW and the VOA. So hopefully I have some good knowledge to share with you guys.
Thank you. Okay, so next time I'll remember to say Wasizotia, but I don't know how you reply, so maybe you can tell me that at the end of the session. But that's Danze from Next Media Uganda, radio personality. If we can move on to this lady over here.
Okay, my name is Chiku Lueno. I'm a journalist, and I've been a news anchor for over 15 years until I decided to branch out to other areas of communications. I've worked in communications capacity in different organizations. I've worked in the World Bank as a learning specialist, and then I've worked with the Embassy of Switzerland as a communications person. I've worked with different organizations. What I realize is that journalism is very versatile. You can apply it in so many other ways. Right now, I'm a strategic partnerships and advocacy manager for an Irish NGO called Children in Crossfire. Part of my remit includes communications in general, but also manage social media. At the same time, I'm mentoring a group of journalists who are located all over the country to write stories, authentic stories from the ground to community radios and other community media, online as well as national media. So in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Thank you, Chiku. Very happy to be having with us on the session. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Hannah. I'm Leonard Mubali, working with BBC Swahili as a presenter, producer, but also I've been mentoring the new recruit within BBC because we need to train them and cope with our house style. But before I work with several national media, Sahara Media Group, the Restart TV, Radio Free Africa, Radio Kwizera, and also my background, I'm a teacher by profession, so that's so.
Yes, karibuni sana. These are our speakers for today, and I guess we should just dive into the session. So I think our first question would be directed to you, Danze, in Uganda. So how do we develop an audience, if we can just start with that? When developing an audience, what kind of tools and techniques do you use to select and create your audience?
Thank you very much. To develop an audience would require you to understand your audience, and there are a couple of things that you must think about. One, the why. Why are you developing this particular content for this audience? Who are these audience people? What things define them? What key insights which will produce audiences. Funny thing is, audiences are no longer just human beings, they become AI as well. I had a session earlier on about artificial intelligence and augmented reality. So because I do digital marketing specifically, creating your audience requires you to first find out what your audience wants. I think that's the most important thing to any kind of audience, because me, the content creator, or me, the brand, or me, the TV station that is supposed to convey information to an end user must understand what they want. Otherwise, they will not give me the time or the ear to consume my content. So that's
Okay, so I guess the first key thing is to understand what the audience wants, as he said, because then you know what kind of content to tailor for them, I guess. But are there any other tools and techniques that you can use to develop audiences?
Yeah, I think in addition to understanding your audience, you need to know what you're trying to achieve. Because depending on organization, depend on entity or yourself, there has to be a goal at the end of the day. So knowing that will guide you to, in addition with breaking down the demographic that you're going to reach out to. You need to understand their age, you need to understand their interest, you need to understand their location, and that will guide you in the selection of the type of media to reach out to them. Okay? Once you understand all that, you can decide if you are going to say, it's a community in a rural area in Tanzania. You want that audience. So once you know them, you know which media is actually accessible to them. If it's radio, then you will reach out to them through that, and then you have to understand the timings that are actually conducive for them to actually reaching that, to listening to your content. So basically, understanding that the media and the audience are the main key ingredients, apart from the message itself and what you're trying to achieve, what call to action you want to put out to them, etc.
Because that will really set in the structure and foundation of how you develop your content in order to keep your audience. So are there any additional techniques?
Yeah, as my colleague have said, first of all, the process of audience development is the process of, let's say, grabbing their attention to what you are producing. So it is a very, very important process in order to take in board for those who are new. You know, there are three things. One is to preserve or retain the audience you have. Second one is to find a new audience. So you need to be binded. So it is very important to make sure that what you are, the output of what you are doing is correlating with their needs or interest. So you need to identify the targeted audience of your station. For example, let's say you're preparing something for youth, you need to prepare according as per their interest, and to see something which can, let's say, trigger their intention and then fall and be part. But engaging them, there is to make sure that they feel that that program or output is owned by them. Like, let's say, phone-in session, live, or by social media, whatever. So all those are the ways on how you can engage them and then move with them. Rather than if you don't find their interest, you will find that you are producing the program for your own and not for your audience. Yes.
Yeah, and I think that also leads us to the technique of consistency. You have to, I mean, if you have already established a set number of people that you reach out to and who are regularly getting your content, I think it's also important to not forget why they're reading that and to not to move, because you remember some people once they get big, I think they call it selling out, and then they get what they were doing in the beginning, and then they just do what sells at that point.
That's a very important point, because you need to build a community and engage them, throughout your process of, sending out that message, getting feedback from them. As my colleague has said, if it's radio, phone in. If it's social media, read their comments, read and engage with them. So build that community so that they be part of it. Yeah. Okay.
So I guess that leads us to the next question, which I'll ask you, Dante. How have you managed to maintain the same kind of audience since you started working in the media industry? Can you hear us? Should I repeat the question?
We lost him.
Yeah, I think we lost MCI for a bit. So maybe we can start answering it on this end. In your experience with BBC Swahili, how have you managed to maintain the same kind of audience since you started working in the media industry? Because I believe you've been here for a few decades in Tanzania. So how have you managed to maintain the audience and not lose followers?
Yeah, it's like cooking food. You always need to let's say, to make a simple research. You cannot cook ugali every day, so we have been struggling to make sure that we make a simple research of what they are doing. They want us to do for them. For example, if we are preparing the program for the youth in our shows, we find that on planning, ideation, in order to satisfy the audience, you start to be very careful to the all stages, to the process of ideation, developing ideas. Does it ideas valuable to them? Are they eager to hear anything according to your selected ideas? So need to be. We have been doing that, doing a simple research, and even doing a simple research to know our loyal audience. We find that maybe if it is hard topic like politics, we know that some of the professors, doctors, and other people will be following.
Okay,
so you need to prepare so that you keep the trust for your audience. They need to trust you for what you are offered for them. So it's what we have been doing. Also, we have been engaging them. Let's say reading their messages, like so and so. We can see we are together with you. You have written 1, 2, 3. They feel prestige. They feel part of the program, rather than on your own, and then you forget that there are people who are following.
True.
Yeah. So that is what we have been doing to make sure we move with them in a strong binding, rather than leaving them behind.
Okay, so there's a definite system to track the feedback so that you make sure you're on track and that you feel engaged.
Exactly. Even training our let's say program that will be having an exclusive interview in our show today. Please come on, something like that. So we have been training also our content. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Chiku, in your field?
Okay.
How have you managed to maintain your audience?
Okay, because I've been moving around a lot, so let me just stick to what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Right now, our area of focus is early childhood development. So definitely the first audience would be a parent. And then there are other people, say teachers, healthcare workers, etc. So what we do is we tailor those messages to be to be better received by them. So we would categorize our audiences and make sure that throughout a month we would have something that's in health, something that's in education, something is purely parenting, what a parent is expected to do with a child at home when they get back from school and all that. So that way, at least you are giving something to that person's of interest. Okay, as long as you develop that interest and they see the benefit and the value in it, engaged, and they try to participate. From time to time, they ask questions. We try to respond, and even encourage them to talk to a neighbor, talk to your colleague, and this. If there's any other question, please reach out to us. So definitely, once you build that that closeness, it's easier to keep that audience with you in a long run. And definitely along the way you may lose some, but you'll also gain some. Yeah, it's a process.
I like what you said about tailoring your content to the specific age group of audience, because I mean, if you're aiming to reach a parent, you're not going to have the same kind of content as you would be reaching a teenager.
Yes.
So you make sure it's just specific to them and reaching them in the area of life. I think that's really interesting. Danze, can you hear us now? We lost you there for a bit. Danze Edward. While we're waiting for MCI, let me just remind you who are joining us from parts of the world in East Africa virtually. Please do send in your questions, because there will be a question answer session at the end for our speakers. So just write in your comments and your questions so that the speakers can answer them at the end of the session. Danze, can you hear us? MCI, can you hear us? Okay, good. You're back now. My question was, how have you managed to maintain the same kind of audience since you started working in the media industry? Specifically in radio, because you said you're a radio personality in Uganda. So what kind of strategies do you use? Sorry, Danze, your audio is quite low. If you could raise it a bit for us.
About now.
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, we're having technical difficulties. We are not managing our audience that side very well.
It's okay. I think it's a common issue today, unfortunately.
Okay. So like I was saying, for radio in particular, since it's about engaging virtually, though I do audio-visual radio, so they have to see me as well. I think about my visual etiquette as well. But the most important thing that I would say about retaining the audience that I would have on radio is to make sure what I am talking about benefits them. It won't matter if I came up with an amazing topic about sexual reproductive health, for example, but the particular audience that I have isn't interested in that. It will mean I'm just speaking to myself. So the reason, one of the techniques I use, or we use at Next Radio, is to make sure that we did the research prior. We asked them what they wanted, meaning I'm going to go on my social media handles. I'll post a poll, people will vote, select the topic we should talk about, or they will select a guest that we should bring to studio. And also, sometimes we will use trends, for example, what has been trending this week, what has been the topic of conversation that week, and we will go by that. So that way I'm guaranteed that when I'm on air, I'm going to get a call in, or I'm going to have engagement throughout the time that we're speaking. Now that's just radio. When the other umbrella that I put on, or the other coat that I put on, which is digital marketing, is when we are having, say, the 9 p.m. news, and we know that our audience may not have an ability to dictate the kind of stories we cover that night, which would be different from radio. We ensure that we at least broadcast or showcase their social media feedback on the screen. But beyond that, audience development is really about engaging and retaining your audience. we ensure that the anchors who they probably switch on to look at read out these messages that they are putting on social media. That way they feel a lot more connected to the product or to the broadcast, and eventually we're able to engage and retain them.
Thank you, Danze. That's really insightful. I mean, it's really important to ask people what they want, because otherwise, I mean, it's quite difficult to kind of, it will be kind of like hit and a miss situation. You know, you don't know how it will be received, but if you already know what they want, I think your half of the work is already done for you. And I think now that brings us to the key question of the session. What are the challenges that you face
But
as
before
you...
the key question, I wanted to add something from my colleague, that there are three things which are very important while being in the process of whatever, producing some or preparing something for your audience. First of all, you implement what you have in plan, that is number one, but keep on tracking to see how does it go. You know, when you track is where you can even see the areas of improvement according to the needs of your targeted audience. And then finally adjust. You adjust how, for example, if it is a radio program, you can even revamp the program. You revamp the program, because if you produce something and there's no one who is following, you better change, or even find you utilize the time, the air time, to create another program with the target clear and specific targeted audience.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And Danze touched on that as well with the digital audience, that they read back the feedback comments so that they really feel, not only do they feel that the audience connects, and they also get that chance to kind of track, you're saying, so that they it's kind of like a roadmap to see if you're still on track on what you're trying to achieve. So I think for the interest of time, we're going to take the questions from the audience. We're going to take a few questions here, if there are any in our audience on this side, and then we're going to take some questions from Uganda, one question from each hub, and then one from our virtual audience. So is there a question here for any of the panelists?
So I had 2 questions.
Yes.
One was...
one, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll repeat it so our followers can...
So, given the
mic is there, so there's a lot different thing.
Oh, I have to stand.
Maybe you can just... Yeah.
So my question was, currently, who is driving the agenda in the media? Is it print media still driving the agenda? Is it social media driving the agenda? Or what exactly have you seen as a trend in driving the agenda that ends up being the topic that people are talking about at the end of the day?
Thank you. If we can have the question from the Ugandan audience as I check our virtual comments.
About the target audience. I mean, there is a little bit of mixture. I don't know whether it's me who doesn't understand target audience. Sometimes when people talk of target audience, we often take target audience in age bracket, which age, and also we rarely talk about the region. So in my audience selection or maintaining my audience, should I put in that element of bringing in, putting in a region also and the age bracket into the target audience?
I think I'm trying to read the comments here for the... the audio was a bit low. Is it possible for you to repeat your question, sir?
Did I repeat the question on your behalf? Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Who is your question directed?
whether we should always include the region, the age, the gender, and generally what he was asking was, in terms of targeted audiences, what actually dictates your audience? Is it all those things, gender, age, demographic, or there are particular things that are bigger drivers compared to the other?
Okay, if I can just ask the team on this side to help me to read the comments.
So far, it looks like there's no question on this side.
Okay, I thought it was my device. There is no question from audience, so I guess all our panelists can kind of answer. If we can start with you.
Okay, so the first question was, who's driving the agenda?
Yes.
Is it in the digital media or in print media? Okay, so I think it depends on what you mean driving the agenda. First of all, once you know your audiences and you segment them properly, you will know which voice is coming stronger. Okay, so in the social media, most of the time it is very urban-centered messaging because they are the ones who have access to that, mobile phones and social media and internet, etc. So their voices can be very loud from the social media. But then if you are very urban-centered, your voices will be coming from calling in the radio programs. So it really depends on where they are, the audiences, and what type of media they have access to. Okay. So in the rural area, most they will be talking about, we need water, we need electricity, and that agenda will be coming very strongly from those areas. But in the social media, you would see they'll be talking mostly about politics, about global issues. Okay, so because they have access, they easily can access instantly information that's coming from the US, from everywhere. Okay, so they can pick it up and package it and generate discussions, and it would go viral, as they say, and it will be an agenda, and it will be picked in the radio and in the newspapers like that. But in the communities, it would be mainly from the radio, from their meetings, and maybe there was a journalist there doing, developmental reporting, then it will come out, okay? And then it may be picked again in the social media. So they are kind of interdependent, but it really, really is driven by what access media you have.
Okay.
Yeah, to add on that, you asked who are in the agenda. I think the agenda is audience-centered. When you are thinking about agenda, whether it is, say, you are in the newsroom and then you are planning for the agenda of the day, one thing to consider is what is trending connected to the audience. So to me, if you ask me, the community power, the community interest, desire, is the important center, where if you are a media and you want read, because audience or community are your beneficiaries of anything you are doing, you need to target them. That are they going to be comfortable? Are they going to be satisfied with what I'm producing? So when you are setting agenda, if you really want to set the agenda which will be touching the community, which will be, let's say, connect you, your organization, and the community, you need to consider what is trending in the community, what is trending, what is the talk of the town, So audience are the main, your agenda should be audience-centered kind of agenda. Failure to do so, it will be your own agenda, and then you can even see the feedback. If you are engaging them, you can see, evaluate and monitor the agenda which has been set to them, which has been, let's say, set as the point of production of the day. You will see. If they are less concerned with the agenda, you find that they cannot respond.
Danze, if you could answer the last question for us really briefly.
sorry, just want to add something to that. I don't think it would be easy to say who, because a more integrated media strategy allows you to reach out to your audience as well. Social media will give you an advantage. Print will give you an advantage with the older segment in the economy. Then you'll have radio that's going to give you nationwide coverage, and then billboards that are more active now, digital billboards, where you can scan QR codes and all those things. So more integrated format of reaching your audience is always best, but like you said, your audience dictates. At the end of the day, you just have to integrate. Now, for the next question that was asked here about demography, age, and all those things, there is no one unique strategy for audience development. They always change. For instance, if I'm a carbonated soft drink company and I wanted to use a radio station to announce this new drink, I'm going to ask themselves, is it a colored drink? Is it a PET drink? Is it pushing for fun and enjoyment? Meaning it's going to be a younger age group. I'm going to have to design my communication for the younger people. But it doesn't mean that the parents, the people with the actual money to buy this drink for this audience, won't get their kind of strategy. Meaning I am going to have to also design something for their parents who give them the money to buy. So meaning I am going to probably use print media or TV to push this conversation more. You just have to utilize these insights. Where are they located? Is it a campaign for elections? Focus more on rural regions, meaning you're going to use radio, you're going to talk to the elders in the villages since they influence the younger voters. So there's nothing supersedes the other. You just have to maximize the strength of each insight in that population breakdown. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the virtual audience joining us. This has been a session on how to develop and maintain your audience. And we've had Leonard Mubali from BBC Africa, we have had Edwin from Next Media Uganda, and we've had Chiku Luwino, who has a background in journalism, but now she's branched off and she's at Children in Crossfire. So thank you so much for tuning in. It has certainly been a very informative session. Do join us as we convene again right before the lunch break. Stay with us. Hello, MCI, can you hear us? I think they dispersed.
You don't have technical issue when they're coming back.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can just keep on having the conversation with the ones online in here, and then.
Okay. The people online want to skia savvy. Okay. Okay, thank you for staying with us. Apparently we had 20 extra minutes and I was not aware. So if you're following online, do keep sending in your comments and your questions for our panelists. I believe Uganda will be joining us as well soon. I think we'll carry on from the last question, which I think only Danze got to answer, which was, what are the key strategies? Are there any hacks to developing an audience? How do you do it? The how to? And maybe we can start with you, Chiku.
Okay, so first of all, you need to understand that the audience are actually people, and people are different. So the easier way you can do, you need to cluster them. Once you understand where they are, you need to cluster them, in terms of disaggregating them in terms of age, in terms of interest, in terms of location and all that. And then you need to make yourself known. Okay? So there are different ways. You can communicate when you want to send information for behavior change. You can communicate when you want to sell something. You can communicate just for information. So you need to know what you're trying to do and then make yourself known and reach to the people where they are. So for example, let me give you an example of social media. In social media, first of all, you need to open that account, and then you need to start, creating content that will resonate to that group of people, and then you need to reach out to like-minded organizations. You need to tag them, you need to engage with those kind of groups, etc. And the beauty of social media is that algorithm, that's the jargon in there, will help you, because once you are communicating a certain message, like-minded messages will come. And those minded messages would come with the people who are interested in that kind of message. So you piggyback on it, okay? Others would take a shortcut of, doing sponsorship, although sponsorship are good and they'll give you, a lot of following in a short time. But they may not be sustainable because, again, the mechanism of the algorithm can also take them away. So I think my best hack was to get it organically, okay? You understand, put it in your mind that you're dealing with people, what are their interests, where to reach them, and you start delivering content and going to the channels where they normally go. And they come organically, they come interested, and they want to engage. So you take it from there.
Thank you. I think as we still wait for Uganda, can I give you the floor? Maybe you can keep on answering the same. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think Chiku has said here, you need to do something, let's say, which is as per their. Because as I've said before, those are consumers.
Excuse
me. Those are the main consumers of what you are doing. For example, you are in online business, you open the website, there is no updating it. So when they go around and see the plain website, today plain website, tomorrow again, is the place where they can even quit from following your website, whatever. So you need to be in touch with them daily. Look, checking their interest, doing something as per their interest, then creativity, innovation, but also as an organization, you need to have, let's say, a shared commitment, shared vision with other staff, because let's say you are owning a radio station, for example, your staff should know that we are doing everything for the betterment of the audience. So it's where now you will find the teamwork, creativity from every corner, creativity from the producer, presenter, every corner, intending to make sure that you retain the audiences you have and even getting new audiences, even planning for the future audiences too, yeah.
Okay. But what about the individual who is not part of a strategy to get more followers, and they want to develop their own audience as well? They're a content creator, but they want to know those strategies. Is it different if you're as an individual and as a part of a media house? Are the strategies different?
You want to start?
Okay. I think the only difference is that a company is coming with more resources. Okay, resources in terms of more people, more, a lot of other things that are backing their ability to actually do different things online. So as an individual, you need to learn from what other people like you are doing. That is the easiest way of getting in there and doing things. Look for people who are doing what you're doing and check out their website and study them and start copying. Okay? Don't take it's not about plagiarism or anything like that. It is about taking the strategy. For example, I don't know what example I should take. For example, I am a content creator for children's books. I'll follow bookshops. I'll follow kindergarten websites and all that, and see the kind of content they put out there, and see the kind of audiences they have and engagement, and try to learn and customize it to your audience now, because now you're building your own. It has to come with your own touch. You can learn from others, but create your own. Okay, the easiest way for somebody who's coming in, without resources, is just themselves to start building. So if they have a little money, they can try a little bit of sponsoring, of some of their content, but they should come with very authentic stories that resonate with the audience, but very, very authentic. Okay, storytelling is very, very powerful. All humans like to hear stories. So learn from others, create your own content, and take it from there.
I think that's a really interesting point that you just raised. As we were talking about it yesterday as well. Uganda, are you back? Yes, we can hear you.
Hopefully you can hear me too.
Yes, we can hear you guys from MIC. So to explain to the Ugandan audience, we had 20 extra minutes that I was not aware of. So I ended early, my apologies, but we're still here with the speakers. So I would encourage the people that are on the different hubs to keep sending in their questions. And yes, I also have a few questions here that we didn't get to, and I think we have about 12 minutes left. So maybe I can ask you the next one, which is, what are the challenges that you face as you develop audiences as well as the tools you are using? Danze.
The number one challenge is the birth of social media. It became a big problem in itself. It's a very huge opportunity. Locally here, we have about 12 million active social media users in Uganda, but they are scattered all over various social media platforms. So it's hard for you sometimes to know where your biggest impact is going to be, because most times the data will be either inaccurate or will be an assumption by the so that both of them will just roll with it. But some of the biggest challenges we get is inconsistencies in data. That's number one. Two, our ND also doesn't know how to share their information. For example, if you're using a food delivery app or a cab hailing application on your phone, I can easily tell where you stay, how often you move to particular places, what kind of restaurants you go to. So it's easy for me to get that information and tell a conversation around, let's say, lifestyle or night lifestyle in Uganda. That would be easy. But the bigger part of the population, I would call it, is in that dark zone whereby they probably only use feature phones. These are the capability phones, like we call them here, or they don't have patterns or habits that they continuously partake on. So it's also hard for us to utilize that data. Now, why is social media a challenge in itself? Is because the conversations change too fast, too frequently, too often. Recently on Twitter, there's been a red flag thing going on. You'll go to Facebook and find out they're naming and shaming someone. You'll read print and find out that agro-tech is in right now when you read newspapers. And then on TV, they're fixated on the politics here and there. So it's very hard for us to get effective data from social media in that way. But remember, it's still an opportunity. That's one of the biggest challenges I would put across. Secondly, we face a challenge of the radio presenters and TV hosts. We are always produced. Our directors will dictate what we must talk about that particular day. If the newsroom story of that day has been an arrest of, let's say, an opposition politician, we are more often or not going to have to run with that content. But you may find the audience would be less bothered about that particular story. So that becomes a challenge as well.
Thank you, Danze. If I could ask you the same question, what are the challenges that you face as you develop audiences, as well as the tools that you're using?
Oh, there is a challenge of audiences' misconception, because when we are trying to prepare something for them, there is a guidelines, professionalism, ethics, whatever. They don't consider that. What they need is to offer or to offer them what they want. But you are not offering them what they want. You should cross-check the ethical issues and other ego issues. As you have seen now in the social media, they are just posting any kind of the picture, whatever, but for academician or the one who is professional cannot do it. So that is a conflict of interest sometimes. And also the challenge is about the content, that the content we are offering sometimes, there is conflict of interest from every corner, for example, politicians, whatever. So you cannot satisfy. While you are struggling to satisfy your audience, also you should remember that there is other legal issues following. So the challenges. And the third one is about the facilities. You know, we are living in a new era. Things have changed, utilized. So there is a use of facilities for many even stations, whatever. They don't have, let's say, required facilities according to the time which we are living now. So to me, those are some of the challenges, even though they are many.
Yes. If I could ask you the last question, which I hope that Danze, you can also answer. What would you advise the upcoming media personnel on developing your audiences?
Thank you. First of all, there's this concept. It's supposed to have been there for a long time, but there's a new concept that's called Dignified Storytelling. Okay, it comes with integrity. It comes with respect for the subjects that you're developing your story around. It comes with, building positivity and dignified, storytelling. Respecting that individual, that they would want a positive side of themselves to be portrayed. Okay, so once you stick to these values, definitely people will be drawn to your stories, because it's very easy to want to sell a story and exaggerate things here and there. In the process, you are losing the respect, you are losing the value of that person, and that's not good. So stick to the stories that if somebody was telling that story about you, you'd be comfortable. So stick to those, and the other points, as you've heard, of course, they'll be helpful, but that is a very key one.
Yeah. And I think that also applies to the earlier question that I asked about if you're not in the kind of media house context and you're just a content creator as an individual, I think that advice also applies, that you should have your own editorial values and keep your stories with that level of integrity that, you can sleep at night knowing that you did the right thing and you told the story in the right way, and the person still has dignity left at the end of the day, the one that you're talking about. And Danze, if you could close for us with your take on upcoming media personnel, what would you advise them on the subject of developing your audience?
Before I do that, I'll just add to what she just said. In the era of misinformation and malinformation, all this sensationalized content, which is selling a lot these days, I believe what you said is absolutely right. And the US president was spreading fake news on Twitter. They eventually banned him. So the consequences are quite, they don't affect just you, who is in the studio pushing out this information. But then don't sit at the back of the car and go with the trend. Create conversations too. It's better if you're in studio or you're on air and you're talking about a topic that you're passionate about. I love gaming, I love movies, and most times when I'm having this conversation in my WhatsApp groups or on air, or when I'm featuring on a TV show somewhere, the conversation is much more natural and it flows well. So be at the forefront of the engagement, engage with your audience. Don't ignore a simple thank you for the show today that you had. It's very important to that person. You end up reeling them in, they become more loyal to you. You're nurturing, you're watering your garden. So whenever you think about doing something on air or making this a professional career for yourselves, ensure that you care so much about your audience that they feel love towards you, as opposed to a role that I have to tune in and listen to this person for 2 hours. Let them feel like they've only listened to you for about 15 minutes and want more and more of you. So yeah, that's what I would share with the people.
Thank you, Danze. And I think that brings it back to the point that you were saying in the beginning of the session, that at the end of the day, it really comes back to skill. It's about how you structure your story and how the creativity you put into it. And yeah, I think that goes into the of incorporating it into your story, about caring about your audience, that you keep in mind as you're creating the story and you're adding the creativity, that you're kind of safeguarding the bearer of the story, or it's not the audience, it's the story, the story and the characters in your story, so to speak. And I think that's our time, guys. Thank you for staying with us. Hopefully this time we're actually ending the session. Yeah, let's reconvene back on the main room before we go for lunch. Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your input. It really has been a very informative session. Thank you, Danze Edwin and Chikuluwino and Leonard Bubali. Karibuni. My name is Hannah Mbago. This has been Developing Tools Tools in Developing the Audience in Media. Stay with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Do I take this mic?
No, kuna muda ambao iko prepared kwa sababu ni break tu utatumia ya hapa.
Yeah.
Hello, Ben. Ben, are you here? Ben, are you here? Do we have anyone from Kenya? Do we have anyone from Kenya?
I look this way, right.
Okay, if Ben, you're here, I just wanted to inform you that we have some of our speakers who are not here yet because they had set their time to be at exactly 2. So we have Rahim and our moderator as well. So as we're waiting for the other speakers to join, we'll give this chance to Rahim to introduce himself as well as our moderator to engage with the speaker who is in Uganda. So just give us around 5 to 10 minutes. Our speakers will be here and then we can proceed with them as well. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're most welcome to our next session, which is very interesting for the afternoon as we continue in our series of events in the East Festival. As Faraji mentioned, we're waiting for the rest of the speakers to come, but we're going to just introduce the session. And yes, Karibu Jumanne. We have really like I was introduced. So yes, thank you. We have our next other speaker here. We're waiting for one more speaker, and we have our other speaker from Uganda, Ms. Sharon Kakai. Thank you for having us this afternoon. So we'll start right away by introducing the session, and then I'll also give room to our speakers to give a brief intro about themselves. Yeah, the session today we have what can media learn from the innovation, tech, and the startup scene. So we all know what media innovation is. I'm sure it's a very confusing term. It's a common word, but same time confusing. So we're here to learn from the experts themselves of the tech and innovation ecosystem, who have done a number of projects, programs in the innovation ecosystem. They're familiar with the sector and they're going to tell us what it is exactly, what can media learn, the storytellers, the content creators, the journalists, what are they, what should they look out for in the innovation so that they can improve the media industry. So to start with, I'm going to allow my first speaker to introduce himself, Mr. Jumanne. Karibu.
My name is Jumanne Tambarike. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sahara Ventures, and I work in Tanzania, in the innovation ecosystem in Tanzania.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Rahim.
My name is Rahim, and I'm a filmmaker, like full-time filmmaker, and I'm a private-based filmmaker here in Tanzania.
Thank you, Rahim. Next, Ms. Sharon, please introduce yourself and let us know what you do and where you come from.
Thank you for having us here. My name is Sharon Kakai. I work at the Innovation Village as the Marketing and Communications Lead. For those of you that don't know, I'll just give a brief background about the Innovation Village. It's a launchpad for Uganda's upcoming entrepreneurs who are innovating our most pressing around our most pressing challenges. using technology. We work hard to, convene the ecosystem and try to see that everybody through the value chain contributes, to the growth of the startup sector. And that's who the village is. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes, so I think we can dive into the discussion, but I don't know if we can still wait for the next speaker or we should continue. Okay, we can proceed. We've been given the green light. So thank you. We're here to discuss media innovation. What can media learn from the tech innovation and the startup scene? But first, one may be wondering, what is innovation to begin with? Innovation is implementation of new practices and new methods of doing things, improving goods and services. But I would like to first know from our speaker, Mr. Jumane Ntambalike, to tell us what exactly is innovation and the innovation ecosystem at large. What is it for your understanding?
The context of media or
general context?
Okay, great. Yeah, so there's some academic definition of innovation, and I won't dwell into that. But basically, innovation it boils down to four things. What is that you're trying to do, and how you do it. What if you try to do it a bit different, meaning that how can you come up with something a bit different so that you can either improve efficiency or output of what you do. What wows, meaning out of that, what you are doing, what stand out, which will distinguish you from other people who are following the same approach or same procedure. And also what works. The thing you're working on, this new invention or alternative solution or practice, does it work? Does it respond to the problem you're trying to solve or the solution you're trying to create? So innovation of itself is how you do something, how you do it a bit different, how do you add value, but also how do you solve a problem based on what approach or solution you've come up with.
Thank you, Mr. Jumane. Yes, we've all heard from Jumane.
Yeah, just also to add on, I remember the second question was the innovation ecosystem.
Yeah.
So basically, the innovation ecosystem is a system of systems that actually works together and they're built from different pillars of the innovation ecosystem. It can be the innovators themselves as individuals, but also how innovators work with support organizations. These can be innovation hubs, and by innovation hubs, it can be incubators, accelerators, co-creation spaces, media labs, but also you have academic and research institutions which are pushing for knowledge and technology transfer, as well as research and commercialization. But also you can have innovation regulators, people are coming up with policies and regulation around innovation. But also you can have innovators supporting organizations. So all those different pillars that are working together in innovation ecosystem while leveraging resources and value among each other, that ecosystems are creating is what we are calling innovation ecosystem.
Thank you, Mr. Jumane. That's a very well-rounded definition of innovation and innovation ecosystem, which will lead us into our discussion. So we all know that media involves a number of things. There are content creators, there are journalists, storytellers, and innovation, as Mr. Jumane explained it, it's a new way of doing things, new methods. So what can media learn? We have our experienced panelists here today. I know Mr. Jumane personally. He has worked on a number of projects. He's been there in the innovation ecosystem from the very beginning at inception in Tanzania. And he has also developed some of the innovation hubs that were grooming the startups with their ideas. So we're going to explain basically how can media learn from the innovation ecosystem. First, we know that media, there are a lot of techniques that can be used from innovation. So from your experience, your background, and different projects that you've done, I would like to start this discussion with Ms. Sharon. Based on the topic that we have today, what can media learn from innovation, the tech and startup scene? what should media learn from that? Do you have ways or methods that media should be looking out for, the techniques, innovation techniques that they should implement so that they can improve their ways of doing things in the media industry?
Yeah, I do. Thanks for asking that question. It's actually something that we go out debating, especially during our content meetings. I think one of the things we've done so well at the Village is create a platform within the content, that curation for content. And through the curation of that content, one thing we've learned is that we normally jump the process. Most times we've noticed media is quick to highlight really the process. We believe that's where the story is, and that kind of roadmap is what leads you to connect with people based to capture the process, where they started, how they started, so that by the time you're elevating, their wins, their successes, there is something that connects with the public. And again, just to respond to one of our colleagues, he said that the innovation should be able to speak to, our social needs, and we totally agree. And that's what makes innovation interesting. So I think something that media should be able to learn and pick from this, at least, is that the process is really important. Just, highlighting the end of the tunnel or the success, that more than what they would have seen through the journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Yes, as Sharon explained, it's the process that matters in developing new practices, learning from the innovation. So I would also like to take this question back to Mr. Rahim. I understand you've been in the innovation ecosystem. You also currently a filmmaker. So you have already interconnected these two things. So explain to us from your way of doing things, or what you've been doing, what are the things that media should do to learn from innovation?
So I'll start by first describing the procedure of how it turned out to be. I am a filmmaker now. Innovation as innovation has got a big impact to different fields, education, health. We all have seen it. It's a gradual process where with time, it just tends to bring solutions that at some point indulges changes in the community. So same as in the filmmaking, I was in the tech sector, and with time, there was not a lot of these technological disruptions that we see right now, like the existence of these drones, the existence of high-end smartphones, which could record, like anything, anywhere. You know what I mean? Eh? So with time, we see that the more the tech gradually changes, the more the accessibility becomes easier to the youth, the community around. So for me, I was once a techie, and Jumanne can tell about this one. I used to be in the tech industry back in the days, but now I see how much disruptions that the technologies that were once innovations have actually changed the industry. A good example is the use of drones. Like back in the days when the drones were still at a very basic level, like there was a lot of talk, what could drones be able to do? Some would say they will change the way we do deliveries. Some would say drones could disrupt the health sector and deliver medicines and blood across platforms. But then drones came and found their own space in the media. Right now, you don't need to hire a private plane to have aerial shots. All you need to do is to hire a high-end camera or buy a hand camera drone that can be able to give you a very good shot. You know what I mean? So just to bring it down, with media, I think technology and media can be allies that can never be separated, because with time, we need to have accessibility to tools, resources that can make it easier for people to report, people to create content, people to share whatever, lifestyle and everything that surrounds us.
Thank you, Mr. Rahim. Yes, I think what Mr. Jumanne mentioned earlier, as he was explaining about innovation, I would also like him to give us a bit of depth on that area. What does media imply when it comes to innovation? Like those two things, how do they merge?
Yeah, so I would like to build up on what Rahim was saying. So most of what we are seeing in terms of disruption in the media sector is caused by digital transformation and the emerging of new type of media, which is creating also opportunities, but also challenges for existing media. The way it operates between the so-called traditional media system, which was very centralized, a person who has a radio or a person who has a TV, a person who owns a newspaper, they control everything. They decide what to publish, when to publish, who to publish to. Is something that technology and innovation has come to change. Right now, you don't need a radio to create your own show. You can create a podcast. And if you have a good traction and good followership, you can be able to make money and come up with your own business model. Right now, you don't need to publish a newspaper. If you're a good writer, you can establish your own blog. And if people like your content, you can be able to trend. Right now, you don't need to go and beg any media house, TV media house to have a show. You can establish your own show on YouTube. And if you have good followership, then you can be able to actually capitalize on that. So digital transformation has pushed for new innovation in the media sector, and these new transformation, these new innovation are playing a very crucial or a very disruptive role. So I'll say that is the first thing. But another thing that we are seeing right now, for those traditional media houses, and which they used to serve a diverse group of people, people of my father's age, I call them BBC, born before computers. They're really struggling because now they have to engage with a new type of audience, which is a very different type of audience. They consume different kind of content. If you discuss with some of the people, you come to realize some of the content that most of these young guys are consuming. To some people, it's kind of inappropriate. They're only listening to music and having a lot of fun, but it's a kind of content they consume. And if you want to carry a message, or if you want to push a certain knowledge or information, you have to design and structure your media in such a way they can be able also to consume it. So these are some of the innovations that are happening. Content innovation is happening, production innovation is happening, publication innovation is happening, content delivery innovation is happening. So everything is changing in the media sector because of digital transformation and technology, which is also because of competition is pushing media houses to become more innovative. And while back in the days, media houses will be competing with fellow media houses. Media houses right now, they're not even competing with media houses. They are competing with techies who can create their own blogs. They are competing with the likes of Mila Dio, who can publish content at any time. It doesn't need to establish a radio or something like that. So those are some of the innovation that we are seeing through digital transformation that are pushing the traditional conservative media houses to task to think on a different way where they can continue to stay relevant in the market.
Yes, that's quite knowledgeable. Thank you, Mr. Jumanne. And we have our final speaker for today who has just joined us, Mr. Joseph Manirakisa. I'm going to give him a few minutes to introduce himself. He'll tell us what he does and why he's here today. Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon, and apologies for being late. Very unprofessional, but it happens. Right. I'm Joseph Manirakis has been introduced, and I work for the UNDP currently, managing a new innovation program called Funguo. Before this, I was managing HDIF, the Human Development Innovation Fund, that has just closed its doors. So that's me. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. So also, Mr. Joseph, I'm glad to have worked with him in several innovation projects. So I believe he has a lot to share with us today. Yes, as you're still with the mic, the topic for today is what can media learn from the innovation, tech, and startup scene? And as Jumanne was explaining, from his point of view, like different ideas or different implementation ideas that media can take from innovation. I would like to move the question to you, Mr. Joseph. You have worked in several projects. Previously, you have funded different innovation projects. You have worked with different startups who have had different ideas, even in media, I believe. So tell us from your view, what do you think media is inclined to do when it comes to innovation? What are the practices that are very good to look out for so they can be able to become more innovative?
Yeah, thanks. I hope I won't be repeating myself or what Juman has just said, but I think he's just mentioned that given the current level of digitalization and tech revolution, if I can call it that way, I think the media houses have been forced to kind of follow suit. I mean, some of them have actually closed shops because they couldn't compete. I think we have some examples in Tanzania at the moment. But for those who have managed to kind of survive, or who are kind of surviving, I think there are a few things that we can pick from them that I think they have probably learned from the techies and innovators. And I think they have been forced to change their vision. I think the way the media used to be managed and the way we used to look at to them waiting for the next day to get a newspaper, it has completely changed right now. He's talked about the delivery methods. I think right now, I don't remember when it was the last time I bought a newspaper because I have an app that can actually be able to get a newspaper on my phone. And if you discuss with some of these innovators who are kind of coming up with these delivery channels, a few media houses have actually hesitated to actually join them, and they have paid the prices. So I think they can learn that in this particular era of technology transformation, there are some of the things you can resist at your own peril. The second part is about who they use to take as news sources. I haven't worked in the media, but I have friends who work in there. I understand that every morning they kind of gather and brainstorm on what should actually be published and what shouldn't. Right now, I think that could be archaic as we talk, because source of news are different, are various. But at least there are some of them who are kind of sharp enough, who are always active in these other platforms like Clubhouse to actually hear what people are actually discussing, what makes the news out there. And I think that's a coping mechanism. And those who are not following suit, definitely sooner or later might actually see that they're actually playing a very losing game. The other part, I think, for some of the media that we probably have been successful in coping with this kind of development, those who have got transformational leaderships, like leaders who actually can foresee what's happening tomorrow, probably what people would like to hear, not what we think people want to hear, but clearly what people want to hear. I think you can compare that with an innovator who's going to be successful in the market. Much as they would like to follow their passion, but you always have to ask yourself, what does the consumer need? What will the user say if they look at my product? So I think the same case applies for media houses as well, that they have to always not think about themselves, but also engage the consumers to understand what is the trend right now, what do they read, what they want to hear, and how do they want to be engaged. So I think that's very clear right now that you are going to, if you ask so many young people at the moment, you're going to ask to find out that there are so many radio channels that they no longer tune into, because probably they haven't been able to change to actually speak their language to kind of feed them with the content they want to consume. So there are so many ways that I think media house can learn from innovators if they really want to survive in this kind of current era. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Back to Ms. Sharon in Uganda. I would like to know, are there any media innovators in your innovation ecosystem, and what have they done so far in the innovation ecosystem that other media houses or just storytellers, journalists can learn from? And how does it look like? What is the industry like in the innovation ecosystem for the media? And what practices are being implemented at the moment that as we speak? Ms. Sharon, are you there?
Thank you. Yes, we do. One thing pursuing we see a lot of increase
Hello? You're still breaking. We can't hear you well. Maybe it's the network. Okay, as we get back to you, we can, as you're setting up the technical difficulties you're experiencing, back to Rahim. Yes, so you mentioned you've worked in the innovation ecosystem, and now you're a filmmaker, you make films, so you have moved from innovation to media. What for you in the transition, and what differences have you seen so far, and how are you implementing the innovation practices that you have learned previously into the media as you're making the films and everything that you do?
All right. First, I'll start by describing this scenario here. 10 years ago, if I wanted to create a TV show, before anything, I would start to think of which TV broadcaster will buy my show. This is the first question. If I wanted to make a film, first I have to think of which distributor will buy my CDs. You know what I mean? Eh? And depending on who is currently ruling the market, chances were always very obsolete, very little. That's why even the creativity, we could see very less youth engaging themselves in the media industry. Let's say filmmaking, content creation, music industry, videographies and everything, you know what I mean? Eh? But with time, it became a lot more easier to access the market than it is to access the distributors, the TV broadcasters and everything. So with this ease, which means right now I know if I create my film, I don't have to struggle going from media house to ask for them buying my film, but rather I have to just create a platform, a viewership that people will like my content, and then it's easier for me to sell it to them. And how do you do that? It's easier. You can create traction through social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And then if you want to really make business out of it, you can now sell it to these big media operators like Netflix or Amazon Prime, which the specifics are very obvious. If you need your film to be in our platform, you need to reach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the challenge is left with you. Can you reach that? You know what I mean? Eh? So now you understand what you need to do to get somewhere. Now you understand that you can create your own fan base through social medias. Now you understand that you have all the tech in your hands that you can use it to deliver the best image quality. You have the people around you that you know you can like team up through different platforms to create the best stories that you can sell to any platform. You know what I mean? Eh? So when I was in the tech industry, by then you want to watch a TV show, you need to look on the schedules. This TV show is at this time, they decide, like what Jumana say, they decide when they want you to watch it and what you should watch. But right now, 90% of the times I get the news before even the media houses. Why? Because the digital platforms have advanced way ahead of these regular forms of broadcasting in the country. Right now, I can hear the news that, all right, guys, we have had a earthquake in Mwanza, way ahead before even Millard Hayo, way ahead before Cloud FM. Why? Because the information flow now is a lot more quicker. People send the information. You don't need a media house to know that an earthquake happened in Mwanza. You know what I mean? Eh? And by the time that the media house bring that information to the public, it's already too late for me. So media houses need to keep up with the pace of how the technology is changing. Now, speaking on my side, after I transitioned from techie to media, I apply the same practices. What should be done? Because I've been in the tech industry, I see how tech is evolving, and now I've swapped from the techie aspect to media. So it's just as easy as to try and merge into the trend. How can I sell my film? There's Netflix. What is the specification? I need to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 specifics of the cameras, let's say. How can I reach my market? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right now, it's a lot more easier for me to say, if I do 1, 2, 3, I can get 1, 2, 3 than how it used to be back in the days, where somebody has to hold my hand and put me in the platform. If I want to be a filmmaker, I know I have platforms where I can sell my film. If the platforms won't sell my film, won't buy my film, then I can literally put efforts to create my own fraction, put effort to create my own market, and try to sell it the way I find it possible for myself. So right now, I would say opportunities are in the media industry. And that's the reason why I also leverage it, and I'm involving myself full time.
Great, great. And as a follow-up question, so do you think the media houses, the likes of our local media houses, Clouds TV or Star TV, what should they learn, as you mentioned? What should they learn from that?
First, I would say a lot of youth don't watch local medias at the moment. Yeah. Like very
Sharon,
few now. Okay, like again? You find a very...
Hello?
Yes, yes. I can hear you, Miss Sharon. Hello?
Okay. So it's very hard to find, like the last time, I remember last time for me to sit in the TV saying that I'm watching local news, it's over 8 years ago. And if I sit, okay, sometimes you say, okay, you know what, let me check TBC, and you just put TBC. I think the content is outdated. Like most of these media houses still rely on the old ways of sharing their content. If you want to watch a movie in Clouds, I'm pretty much sure you know what kind of movie it will be. Yeah. But if you have Netflix with you, you have endless options. You can choose. DSTV, we all are familiar of DSTV. DSTV, I think they're playing pretty much good when it comes to changing with their perspective. They used to be like very famous back in the days. If you have DSTV back at home, you know, you're from a fancy family. But right now, they have advanced to the point that if you have a decoder at home, you can literally download the DSTV app and you can have access to all the shows. But yes, it's still like the same media like back in the days where they decide when you watch it. And this is where platforms like Netflix, platforms like Amazon Prime, platforms like the documentaries in YouTube stuff hits the top point, because you decide what you want to watch. If I want to watch documentaries about crime, I'll go to YouTube, open Al Jazeera Crime TV, and I'll watch whatever I want to watch. But with DSTV, yes, they have brought the service to the mobile phone, but I still need to time them when they want me to watch their show. So what I would say is, it's okay to stick to the old ways of doing things, but sometimes it's good to twist where the world is going, because that way you create a platform for users, a platform for content creators to feed in your platform. You know what I mean? And in that way, then you don't lose traction, you don't lose market, and you compete in the market. What Joseph said before was a lot of media houses have shut down before in Tanzania at the moment. Not because they don't have money, not because they don't have funds, because competing in this current trend needs you to leverage technology, needs you as a media house to take advantage of every single opportunity to grasp as much users as possible. And this is why right now it's much more hype, or it's much more profitable for me to do whatever I can to sell my content to Netflix. Right now, it's a lot more better to post my content on YouTube, because with a lot of views, I get paid by YouTube, than for me to wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to Clouds, I'm going to WhatsApp, TBC, these media houses to sell my content. You know what I mean? And to bring another example here is a lot of these music directors, like the like of Anskana in Tanzania and Filifi in Kenya, they shoot music videos, they get paid. But what pays them more is if the music video gets more viewership on YouTube and not local medias. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you could see the trend. You could see how media houses need to twist some things to be able to fit in the market. Otherwise, I mean, in the next 5 years, I'm pretty much sure the kids born in 2000 have no idea what these local TVs are. These TikTokers, what we call them now. So I think they just need to follow the trend and use innovations to see how best they can position themselves in the market, but still not lose traction.
Thank you very much. That was quite insightful. Yeah,
Tanzania, can you hear us?
We can hear you now.
Tanzania?
Yes, hello.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, welcome back, Sharon.
Thank you.
Sorry for the inconveniences that you had with the technical issues. Yes, so you had my previous question.
Can I request you repeat, please?
Yes, I can. Yeah, so I asked what has, from the innovation ecosystem in Uganda, are there any media innovators that are there, and what practices are they doing, and that other media people can learn from? And how is the industry there? Like, is it growing or is it still picking up?
Yes, we have a couple of media innovators. In fact, there are quite a lot. And one at the village, because we cluster and categorize that in the creative sector, we have created a space for them at our makerspace Motive, which is our home for, creatives, and media is one of those segments that we really give attention to. So we've seen a lot of growth in the different content formulations. There's people who are doing animations. There is people who are doing videos. And because of that growth, we're able to create a media lab of sorts where, build on their craft, but also have access to equipment at affordable prices. So yes, definitely we've seen a lot of growth in this, and we can see it from the different content, even that we are able to adopt and churn out on our different platforms.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon. Yes, I think to add on that, we also in Tanzania have a couple of media innovators, the likes of Ubongo Kids. Maybe if you also agree with me, they use animation to send out educative content for children on TV. So they have programs on TV that they can teach kids on different subjects, but the use of cartoons and animation, which is quite innovative. We'll talk more about it later because I believe Mr. Jumanne and Joseph are quite familiar with that. But right now, we're going to open room to our audience because it's a listen and debate session. So we're also going to allow the audience, if they have any questions for our panelists today, to ask, and then we can hear their views. So we'll open the floor for questions if there is any. From all our audiences in Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, you're all welcome. No question? Oh, yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, I have, my name is Frank. I have a single question to Mr. Jumanne. What's your opinion if we create some innovation ecosystem, or innovation hub on media, so that we can get new innovations that can help to improve media platform?
Yes. Mr. Jumanne, you can go ahead and respond.
First, I know there are some media innovation hub. I know there's a Habari Hub. Is it, I don't know, Habari Hub is under Mwananchi. Yeah, so I know there's a Habari Hub, but it's under Mwananchi. Might be, of course, depending on their own policies on how they operate. Sometimes it can be conflict of interest if it's an innovator from outside. I know there is a Baraza in Kenya. My good friend is running it. And also there's Motive in Uganda. So I'm not saying why we shouldn't have one in Tanzania. But before thinking about a physical space, I have issues with physical spaces. If you can develop a community of practice of people who are just passionate about media and innovation, you can be meeting in other hubs, so you don't need to create a physical space. It can be a community of practice. People are just passionate about innovation and media. You can be meeting once a while, maybe every Monday, to discuss different issues, do your own events and everything. So I'm not of an idea of rushing into starting a physical space and finding millions of money to start a hub while you don't know even what you want to do. So once you have programs, activity, a community of people who are interested, and some sort of a sustainability model, then you can think about having an innovation hub. I wanted to add something on what Rahim was saying. So we're doing something with Tanzania Media Foundation right now on their media viability program. We are actually training as Sahara Ventures and as Jumanne, we are training one pillar of the media viability program, which is innovation and digital transformation. And one thing I've learned, we have to be a bit realistic, and we need to find a balance. I'm an innovator, and I'm a digital transformer. I love innovation. And one of the classes that we train is media and the 4IR, media and the fourth industrial revolution, how new technologies are transforming the media sector. I think we also need to find a balance and understand the pain of transformation, because it's not just about adapting technology. This is a change management issue. You need to change how organization and how leadership think. I've worked with media houses and I've learned it's not easy, because sometimes people under line management or even normal employees want this transformation to happen, but they don't own these facilities. They don't own these institutions. They don't own these media houses. So one way I think we need to have those transformative leaders who actually sees opportunity in terms of adapting innovation and tech in their media houses is something which is very, very important. But another thing which I also think I want to insist and encourage is strategic partnership. There's a very interesting article on how The Economist and the Washington Post were able to catch up with these transformations that are happening and how they transformed their media houses to catch up with with digital transformation. It's a blend of being ready to adapt technology, but also sticking to your values. Because the issue is not just innovation. There are still things in traditional media that are very, very important. Authenticity of the information, accuracy of the information that is being shared, the quality of the content, reputation and credibility of the journalist. Those are aspects of traditional media which are super, super important, and you don't need to disrupt them. But there's some other aspect of the traditional media that you need to disrupt through innovation to ensure you're able to reach more people, you're able to reach more people accurately and timely, because there's a lot of other yellow journalism and fake news and distorted information out there. So innovation and technology is not just all good. There's some other negative side of it. So basically, I wanted to insist on that. We need to find a balance when we say we want to innovate and bring technology in the media sector. We can be realistic by looking also the status of our own local media and what is the best way for us to transform. And to your question, it's possible to do that, but start with the community programs and activity before thinking of a physical space.
Thank you, Mr. Jumanne. I'll take 2 more questions. Anyone else?
Mine is, I have 2. One, I've had so many startups, media startups. And so I'm asking, yes, there are many starting up, but what have you done, like a track analysis to find out how many do survive? And especially during this COVID, how many have survived? Yes, people are starting up, so many innovations, so many media innovations, but I mean, what is the track rate right now? How many do survive? And then the second one is, what criteria do you use for these innovators to access things like, startup funds and any other help they might require to go through this period? Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. In fact, it's very, very timely because recently Motive launched a CBA program. It's the Creative Business Academy. And this academy has been built to help, the new innovators, keeping in mind that they may not necessarily be business savvy, because that's the goal, right? To be able to create something that's sustainable. So this academy, it has been put in place to help us, the creatives, especially, and even the media guys can come through to be able to go through different trainings on what sustainability looks like and what the process is like to go there. Yes, we totally appreciate the fact that it's not easy. It's a whole try and fail most of the times before you get to the tail end. And that's why we created the Creative Business Academy, because we realize that there's a lot of talent out there, but the business sustainable, that make growth sustainable, are what's needed for this to continue, for the different media innovators to have that sustainability. I'll give you a good example. I think 1.5 years ago, or about one year ago, on the side of the Innovation Village, we launched something we call Future Media, and this was our Future Lab, which works with different corporations to be able to increase the uptake and recognition of the different startups. And what the Future of Media did was to create exposure for the different media innovators in there. And through the process, because it's a whole drill, it's a whole program, there is lessons learned, there is sharing experiences. We're able to take the top 5 who were given, and recognition, but not everybody, of course, could win. But I guarantee you that process was able to, highlight the gaps and show growth. So we always have programs that, build towards the growth of this sector, especially right now, the fact that we know that technology is a thing, the Internet of Things, it's not going anywhere. If anything, it's evolving every other day. So we've taken critical steps to make sure that we create an environment or a community. At Motive, we call it the tribe, to be able to create access, networking, knowledge, which is really key for the different innovators to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon. Maybe we can take one more question from Kenya. The audience in Kenya, are you with us? If there is no question from there, then we can take one more from our audience here. Sure.
Thank you. My name is
Sharon,
Pascal.
someone has a question here. Oh, okay.
Okay, just continue, we'll pick it up. From Uganda?
Yes, we have one.
Okay, we'll get to her. You can continue. Yes, let's take this one and we'll take that one.
Yeah, I have one question. As we know, yes, Tanzania, no, not only Tanzania, Africa needs, it faces a lot of challenges, not only in the media facilities, but also in the other facilities. For example, I, from the health sector, I'm a student at University of Health and Sciences. Now, there are a lot of innovations that we young people are trying to get through to solve the challenges, but we're always facing that. We do have the challenges. Yes, I'm aware of some hubs, innovation hubs are holding certainly events to collect the innovation from the youth, but will pose a challenge that, for example, the Sahara Ventures, yes, I'm aware that they're holding of a lot of hackathons to collect the innovation, but they specifically deal with certain challenges. Not only that they allow the people to, with any kind of innovation, to come and collect the ideas. They only deal with certain challenges. For example, the last, I think Mr. Jumane can agree with me, we did a hackathon about the sexual reproductive health, but there are people, for example, there at our university, we hold an event. There are a lot of ideas that people have in different fields, but they lack where to present the ideas so they can be funded and just develop the ideas. Also, Mr. Joseph there said that they do fund the ideas or innovations. Now we're getting problems on how to get you direct on how we can present our ideas or innovations and if we can develop them. I think this is the problem being faced by different facilities, even the media, though I'm not from the sector of media. Yes.
Thank you. We can take also the question from Uganda.
All right, thank you very much. My question about the hub, I just want to know the right criteria that you people undergo through before you give grants or you give an opportunity to content creators, because I'm looking at the perspective of journalists where we have bloggers and all those people who are there trying to communicate or to tell stories, but they have not gone through universities or schools that give them the basics, and they are there blogging. What if these people have the other ways around in which they can make stories or in which they can give out their content? Are you able to be supportive, or do you have criteria that you undergo saying if you are to go the side of telling stories in a journalistic manner and you're not profession yet, maybe if you are in a blog, because yes, sometimes you support bloggers, or and then at the end, once they get skills, still they may get skills, but when they can't fact check stories to know whether these stories are clarified or are true, and then it misinform, but through the skills that you trained them or you supported them, I just like to know how do you make selection and then the criteria in different categories of people who are asking for your funds. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will first allow anyone from our panel to answer the question from the audience in brief because of time.
Okay, so I will answer first the question from Uganda. The way you say that there's a lot of bloggers, content creators who might need access to funds. So personally, since I started engaging myself in the filmmaking, I know a lot of young people who just wake up in the morning and I'm like, wow, I'm becoming a photographer. He invests money to photography and tomorrow is just taking pictures of models and that's how the trend is. There's a lot of them out there right now. And how can you measure the authenticity of each content creator? Is by the content they create. So if you'd say, okay, how can we have access to the funds and everything? I would say, if let's say Jumanne with Sahara Venture says that, okay, we are giving you a fund to fund your media production house. And then you create shitty content. You have no viewership. You have no traction. Nobody's watching your show. How are you going to leverage on that? So in most cases, I would say that good content sells itself. People are automatically attracted to good content. You go on, most of you have got Instagram, I'm pretty much sure, Facebook. Sometimes you scroll, you see content not good, you just scroll past, you don't even watch it. And sometimes you come across a video and you even watch an entire TV because the content is good and worth it. And to make it even much more better, you press follow, you press subscribe button, and you continue seeing the content. So this is how you measure the authenticity of who to give money, who not to give money. And in most cases, if you have selling content, like we said before, market right now is an open market. You have good content, people will come to you. You don't need to follow a media house. You don't need to follow somebody. All you have to do is to invest in the good practices to tell your stories, which means good content, good team to work with, good stories to share with the community, and at the same time, traction on how best you could reach the most remote person in this world. And we all have got smartphones right now. If your content does not target you to reach people in their smartphones, then you might struggle to even fit in the market. So before you start thinking on how you're going to get funded as a media house, I think media is among those platforms where you have endless opportunities. You can get your smartphone, go in the streets and report. And if your report is authentic, you are live there before Miladai or you're live there before these Cloud FM, people are going to get the news straight from you before anyone else. That's how news is spread faster. So if content is good, then you might not even need the funds. All you need is the working model. All you need is good stories. All you need is the capacity to find a position in the market. Funds can come later. How? When you want to upgrade now to even a bigger platform. You have tested yourself, you have good content, you have viewership, and now you need to go somewhere else. This is when you say, okay, you know what, Jumanne, I think Sahara can save me some amount. I need to buy better cameras, expand my team so we can reach much more people through our storytelling. And I think that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Rahim. Because of time, we're going to answer also the other questions in conclusion. So we've discussed, this is quite an interesting discussion. It deserves a standalone event with topic media and innovation because there's a lot to be discussed in it. And so in conclusion, I'm going to allow our panelists to give us what are the takeaways? What should the audience take away from you, learning that innovation and media are the same thing? So what should media learn from innovation? Starting with Mr. Joseph.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's to be unfair if I don't address your question.
Yes, you can actually answer it.
Yes, about having a lot of ideas, but don't get attention from the funders. I think you actually put it rightly. There are so many ideas out there, but which ideas can actually be viable, can actually result into business model that can actually be able to sell? So that's a big question. And the supply of fund is not unlimited. So which means they're going to have to put up criteria which are going to end up funding ideas that they feel like they're going to go places. And basically, they're actually a good example. There's one example that I usually look at. I mean, every morning I look forward to getting briefing from the Channel Initiative, for instance. That's like one of the best media innovation I've ever seen because the guys just can't had to pivot. And the kind of content he put out there, you actually want to look at it. So everyone is going to feel attracted to that kind of content. So this also applies to every other sector. So many young people are going to come up with innovations, yes, but not all innovations are going to attract funding. But that doesn't mean that your innovation is not good enough. And maybe you need to do something like bootstrapping and stuff like that. So you reach a level where you're actually going to be attractive to potential funders and the incubators like Jumaines. Because the spaces are limited, they cannot take everyone with ideas. So I think that's something you need to know. Now, just as a part of conclusion, that I think we have already said it all, that we have heard quite all that without innovation, without coping with the technological development, I think the media industry, the way we know it, the traditional media industry, the way we know it, we might actually forget in the next very few years. So it's a good thing to see some traditional media now coping up, investing actually in technology, but most importantly, investing in people. Because as Jumane put it rightly, you can have all the technology you want, but if the people's mindset don't go alongside the technology innovation, I mean, there's nothing that's going to happen, and you're just going to sink your investment without changing people's mentalities. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sharon from Uganda, what are the takeaways that you have for the audience? What should we take away from this discussion? And you can also answer in brief the question that was asked to you from your audience.
Right. I think I'll start with the question that was asked, especially in regards to funding. And it's something we keep telling the innovators that come through our doors, those who are part of our community and tribe, that funding is not your biggest worry, because sometimes you'll get funding and you even can't amass that funding. You wouldn't know what to do with it if it came, if you're not ready. So just to add to what a colleague of mine on the panel said, what's your niche in your storytelling? Because there's very many people who are telling stories, but what sets you apart, what makes you unique, and what captures the audience? Yes, very many people are on smartphones. How are you targeting them to be able to listen to you, to want to even look out for every time that you're posting? Because if you do not have a niche, if you don't have that captivating factor, then you're not going to penetrate the audience. And you have to do that first, because you have majority of different platforms that you can use to be able to build an audience, to build your following, and then obviously utilize the different networks that would lead you to funding. In fact, we like to say at the village that the funding will come once you're doing everything right. That it will always come eventually, as long as you're on the right path and you're doing right. And you're also, most importantly, true to yourself. We like to jump so much on trends, on bandwagons. In the department, we like to say that jump on the trends for technology and the different systems, products, processes that are being used, but the content that you're churning out should have that unique factor. The takeaway for media here is, like I said before, we need to follow the process of the innovator. By the time an innovator is breaking even or is even being recognized, and they're being recognized in the world globally for their amazing innovation, that innovator has gone through a lot of pain, a lot of process, a lot of sleepless nights. So that's where the storyline is. It's not only at the end, but it's in the journey that this innovator goes through. So how do we, as media personalities, as journalists, as storytellers, capture the process? The trend of vlogging, it's very real. So how do we begin thinking that direction of even us as individuals who are innovating, capturing our process? We think that this would tell your story well. At any one point, if you realized your success, you go back to those old days. The process, the storyline is in the process. And I think it's something that the media should begin looking at rather than just, recognizing the wins and the benefits at the end of the journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon. Just to wind up in a very short brief, Mr. Jumanne, anything you have to say as we conclude the session? And what can the audience learn from you?
Yeah, so to me, and from the work that we've been doing with TMF on media innovation in Tanzania and East Africa, for traditional media houses, I like to end by this quote from the late Luge: "News is no longer news. You have to walk around the news." What the Chanzo is doing is amazing. So from all the way from data journalism, citizen journalism, finding those nuggets of information people can consume is extremely important to understand your market. You should design with your user, focus on user-centered design, understand what your customer want, cluster, design it, give it to them the way they want it so that they can be able to consume it. And in the result, you have to stay relevant in the market, otherwise you'll be phased out. And to the gentleman who asked about supporting ideas, again, it's exactly what Jose said. It's a dog-eat-dog situation. We receive millions of ideas across the country. It's very, very important for you to stay focused and also push that extra mile. You need to put the skin in the game. Because if you don't do that, it's very difficult for people to pick up from there to the next stage. Just one last example. For example, when Jose was with HIDIF, they supported a project called Mawazo Challenge. Out of the 10 innovators, 7 were not serious, 3 of them were serious, and they're still operating up to right now. So if you put commitment, then people can see you, can continue to fund you, can continue to support you, and can continue to grow. That is how it works.
Thank you, Mr. Jumanne. Yes, as I say, this conversation never ends here, and would like to thank our amazing panelists for today. As you've heard, they're quite experienced, well-versed in this innovation, tech, and startup scene. And also, Mr. Jumanne didn't mention this, that there's an event he's preparing called Sahara Sparks. Yes. You can follow him personally after this session, that he will tell you more about it. But as of now, we would like to conclude and end this session. Thank you very much to all our audiences from Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania right here. Yes, let's join into more upcoming sessions, and I would like to wish you a good afternoon. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.